Hi, this is Greg Steltenpohl, and we're at the Adina World Beet headquarters in the Mission District of San Francisco. Well, my wife and I had the good occasion to meet a young woman named Magatte Wade-Marchand, and Magatte was from Senegal and had returned from a trip there where she had been out of the country for many years and found out that during that period of time while she was gone, which was actually only about 5 or 6 years, a lot of multinational beverage companies had come in and replaced virtually all the indigenous traditional recipes that had been there for hundreds, if not 1,000 years. So we started talking and got interested in collaborating on putting a company together that would focus on rejuvenating and bringing back a lot of these healthy drinks from all over the world. And I'd had a long time interest in fair trade. So this gave us a chance to build a new brand that could stand for those principles. Part of the whole challenge of starting a brand like that is how do you do business in a different way? And with Hibiscus, which is the national drink of Senegal, we had to go back because that industry had changed so much, and we had to form new women's co-ops that would harvest the hibiscus just for us. So we ended up collaborating with some nonprofits over there, the government itself, and set up a way to do quality control in the country and start from scratch. We started to learn that for Americans in the American market, it was harder for people to understand hibiscus, for example, which was a new ingredient to Americans for the most part. With coffee drinks, because of the specialty coffee industry, Americans had started to become familiar with aspects of coffee-producing countries. Those countries of origin were sort of themes that we used to build our products around. With our coffee products, we've been able to work with a larger organization called Transfer, which actually goes in and does certification of coffee growing co-ops around the country, around the world actually. We picked those particular countries and co-ops based on a couple of criteria, but one of the criteria was how sophisticated the co-ops were in their environmental standards, or their sort of ability to have relationships that had some complexity around the social dimension. In other words, women's rights, taking care of education, and so on. I've learned from my experience at Odwalla that demographics aren't strictly the whole story. And we think that brands like Adina are built around their alignment with certain cultural trends. And those cultural trends transgress traditional lines of income, or age, and so on. We have a byline that we use now called Drink No Evil. And Drink No Evil kind of summarizes in a way without being preachy, but it has a certain attitude. And so you can make up your own mind what evil is, whether that's artificial sweeteners, exploitative social relationships, preservatives, GMOs. And we're just identifying with the concept that it exists, and that we stand for something way different, which is a point of view. It's not so much a technical attribute, it's a point of view. This is sometimes hard for people to get across because it's not any one singular benefit. An example might be Volkswagen in the late 60s and early 70s. Volkswagen became an iconic brand because it was an anti-establishment kind of picture. It was a smaller car, it was a rounded car, it was a different shape than all the American cars. And so they didn't have to just talk about the features, they just put it out there as an attitude. And in a way, that's what Adina stands for. Well, a lot of people ask about, what happened there. And in the late 90s, Odwalla went through a product recall, and because of potential contamination bacteriologically in the product. And we were able to completely overcome that over about the subsequent 2 years. It wasn't all the things we did after it happened, but it was also what we did before it happened. It was the company's commitment to certain values. It was the company's commitment to freshness and to showing up at the store every day and buying back all the product that was out of code. So when the big trial came and the company was really put on stage, yes, we stood behind it and we didn't make any excuses, but even when you do the right thing in a recall, it can still be totally devastating. And I think we had an incredible foundation there that we had laid for 16 years of being in business before that the hard way. Most recently, here in 2008, with the pricing of what's happened to basic food commodities, especially rice, the cost of sustenance and basic nutrition for the better part of the population of the planet is now going out of reach. And that's going to become a bigger and bigger political issue going forward. And we think that the consumer, and particularly in developed countries, is going to want to have or do their part to make sure that there's a fair exchange happening. We're trying to say this is what we stand for. And it may take us a while for the public to catch up to it. It may take a while, for us to find the right branding techniques to communicate all those things. But we do stand for something. Much of it is around what we are not. We're not going into artificial flavors. We're not going into artificial sweeteners. We're not going into ultra high processed sugars like high fructose corn syrup. We're not going into unknown sources where we're buying blindly. What we are doing is, we have Organic Valley Farms milk, which is from family farms, no herd of cows more than 50 head. We are going into shade-grown coffee, so it's not just the fact that we didn't use pesticides and so on in the coffee, but it was grown in an ecological environment in which there is complexity and we're promoting biodiversity as opposed to a monocrop culture which has a lot of extraneous impact on the environment. But more interesting also is the fact that we're using a very unique blending process and formulation process that works more like a chef's kitchen or a custom bartender would, as opposed to a food science operation from a big company. And that ends up with flavors that are very, very different. This is the first, drink that uses the goji berry from the Himalayas that actually doesn't taste like a dietary supplement. It tastes like something you can enjoy in the morning. We were the first company to use purple maize, which is a purple corn variety that has been grown in the Andes for thousands of years that the Incan culture used. But we brought it back, put it in a formula together with acai. And in our first group of products, we have surprisingly some very interesting results. We have our mojita, which is a lime mint product, which we were the first ones out with a mojita flavor, very popular. We have a spicy ginger, which is very Asian, hot, spicy, authentic ginger drink, and it's doing very, very well. So it's really hard to second guess the consumer right now. They're actually most interested in some of the things that are the edgiest. The type of people that are reaching out into organics and reaching out into all natural products are people who are, and the research backs this up, very interested in exploring different flavors. It's a challenge, and but I'm a believer that sooner or later people figure out where the authenticity is,